We've got new eliminations, and slowly but surely the playoff picture is starting to take shape. So let's jump right in to our playoff eliminator video this week. Probably going to be a quicker one this week because there's not a ton to talk about. So we'll just kind of run through it real quick. So we'll start with the first. Let's look at the teams that we eliminated last week from at-large contention. And like I talked about last week, at this point we're only going to be talking about the at-large spots. We will, once teams start getting eliminated from conference races, then we will kind of split this up, and we'll have teams that are completely eliminated, and then we'll have the teams that are eliminated from the at-large spots. So all the group of 5 teams, I didn't put them on the graphic here, but we're not even looking at any of those teams. There is not a single team, in my opinion, that has a chance to get in as an at-large team. They're going to have to win their conference championship. Again, I just don't see we talked about that. If the only path was like if Tulane beat Ole Miss, Tulane goes undefeated, South Florida beats them in the conference championship. I felt like that was the only scenario where that could happen. That didn't happen. So yeah, I don't see any path for the group of 5 teams. But these teams we eliminated last week: Boston College, Clemson, Duke, Kansas State, North Carolina, Oklahoma State, SMU, UCLA, Virginia Tech, and West Virginia. So these teams, their only chance is to somehow win their conference championship. And let's be real here, none of these teams are going to do it. I guess Clemson, maybe, if they put the pieces together and we see some upsets in the ACC and they find a way to get there. But they've already got 2 losses. So even if they win out, I think it's going to be tough to get to the ACC championship. All right, so those teams were eliminated already. Now our new eliminations this week, we got Colorado, Arkansas, NC State, and Wake Forest. These teams have no chance, in my opinion, of getting to the college football playoff unless they win the conference championship. Colorado, this was one of those teams that I felt like could maybe get there with 2 losses, not with 3. Arkansas schedule the rest of the way, not good enough in my opinion. Even if they win out, I don't think they get in unless they, of course, go to the SEC championship and win it. NC State does not have a strong enough schedule. Wake Forest definitely does not have a strong enough schedule, despite the fact that they play Georgia Tech tough. There's just really no path for them to get into the playoff unless they win the ACC. So some teams that are staying alive, just some interesting teams to look at. In the Big 12, I think Baylor and Kansas, even though those teams have 2 losses because of who they lost to and because of who's remaining on the schedule, I actually think those 2 teams have a chance if they win out. And then even if they don't win their conference championship, I think those teams have a chance. It's unlikely that they would get in even if they do win out, but it's possible. And then same thing for Florida. If they were to win out, which they're not going to, but if they were to get there at 9-3, there is a chance that Florida could get in. Obviously, they'd be finishing the season really hot. But the only team, so we have not, Arkansas is the first team we've eliminated in the SEC, and UCLA is the only team we've eliminated in the Big 10. So the Big 10 and the SEC, all but one of their teams are still alive, which is very interesting at this point. So let's go to now the top contenders. We've shown you the eliminations. We're going to probably start seeing these pile up pretty quickly moving forward. But the top contenders, I think it's Florida State and Miami in the ACC still. I know that Florida State just lost, but I think this is still a good team, and they've got a pretty favorable schedule. They're going to have to beat Miami. They get them at home, but if they can win that game, I think these teams will play again in the ACC championship, and I feel confident saying that. Now, if Miami wins that game, I think it's going to be, Florida State's going to have 2 losses, and it's going to be a fight to see who gets that number 2 spot in the ACC, and it could be, that's just where we kind of come back to Clemson. Of course, I think Clemson and Florida State are going to play each other, so that'll work itself out. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how that game goes on Saturday. That is a huge game. In terms of the overall college football picture, this is the biggest game of the weekend, and it's surprising to me that game day is going to the Vanderbilt-Alabama game. I just don't understand that. This is a huge game. I mean, this is a massive game in the ACC and in the playoff picture as well. If Florida State wins this game, then I think both teams have a really good shot to get in the playoff, and we could see 2 ACC teams once again. So this is a big game coming up, but that's really not what this video is about. We're talking about the playoff eliminator, and this does have a big impact on the college football playoff as well. I still think it's Texas Tech, TCU, and Arizona State in the Big 12, and maybe Utah. They did bounce back this past week. I want to see more football. Want to see these teams play, more games against quality competition before I can really narrow this thing down. Texas Tech does seem to have separated a little bit, just looking at how good this team is, but it was just one game against Utah. Are they going to be able to play that well consistently? Again, Big 12, I think if Texas Tech does emerge and they wind up kind of running through the regular season, that number 2 spot in the Big 12, the battle for that is going to be crazy. These, in my opinion, are again the top contenders right now, but this could absolutely change. Baylor could get into this conversation. Kansas is not out of it. Maybe Cincinnati jumps in here. Like, there are a lot of teams that are fighting, in my opinion, or potentially will be fighting for that number 2 spot if Texas Tech kind of comes through there. If Texas Tech does not, then it gets even more crazy because you're going to have 2 spots that everyone's fighting for. So the Big 12, very interesting. Again, just, I don't know. I mean, maybe these are not the 3 top contenders. Maybe we should add Utah. Maybe we should add Cincinnati. It's very tough this early, but this is just kind of my personal opinion. These 3 teams, these are the favorites in the Big 12. Let's move on now to the Big 10. Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana. It kind of feels like Oregon is the front runner here, at least based off of what we've seen so far. Indiana has a favorable schedule. They have a good shot to get there. Penn State, even with this loss, I mean, they play Ohio State on the road. That's going to be a tough game, obviously. But other than that, they've got a pretty favorable schedule. 10-2, do they get in again into the playoff if they don't really have any great wins? That'll be interesting to see. They have a very weak non-conference schedule. Could that come back to hurt them? And Ohio State still trying to figure out how good this team is. I think it's tough right now to figure that out. But the one team we know about, it's Oregon. Oregon is an elite team. I think this might be the best team in all of college football. And we know Indiana is capable of doing big things as well. I don't know that we've seen Penn State or Ohio State at this point play their best or look their best. So it's going to be very interesting to see how those teams play the rest of the season. But again, Oregon, I think the front runner. But if we're talking about top contenders to get to the playoff, these are your 4 teams that have a good shot to get there. All right, now we'll go to the SEC. I didn't change this graphic. Hopefully I didn't. I guess I should have put Ole Miss on here. Now that I look at the graphic, I was just thinking, nothing really changed. But yeah, Ole Miss, I think, has to enter into this conversation after their win over LSU. So I apologize to Ole Miss fans. That was just an error on my part. Just imagine them being on the screen here. But yeah, LSU, Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia Tech. I mean, it's wide open. The SEC is, I think, as wide open as any conference. Like, if you ask me who the favorite is, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, Alabama looked really good against Georgia. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know who it is. I think Texas, again, has the most potential. But we'll see. This is going to be a very interesting race here in the SEC. But yeah, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, throw Ole Miss in there. 8 teams that all have a really good shot. Now, John Mateer for Oklahoma, if he doesn't play for a few games, maybe we take them off this list. But it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the SEC this year. Again, I don't know. I don't know who it's going to be. And then finally, a group of 5 teams, really no changes here. South Florida, Tulane, UNLV, North Texas, Memphis. It feels like probably going to be that team that comes out of the American unless UNLV goes undefeated. Or maybe that with one loss, UNLV, maybe that'll be enough for them. I don't know. I lean towards those American teams unless we get an undefeated UNLV. But again, that's the updated playoff picture. Not a lot of changes this week. Going into next week, I still don't think we're going to see a lot of changes. We're a couple of weeks away from really seeing this thing narrow down. And it's crazy with all the double bye weeks again this year. Teams there's a bunch of teams on bye weeks this week, just like they were last week. So it's taking a little bit longer, but we're going to get there, and we're going to start narrowing this thing down here in a few weeks. But again, that's the updated playoff picture, in my opinion. Give me your thoughts down in the comments below.